So welcome back everyone for week 3 of our 4-week sew-along. If you are just joining us, just a really quick little recap. In week 1, we gathered everything we needed to make this fun little crossbody bag. In week 2, and actually in week 1, we did a little embroidery too. In week 2, we went ahead and did everything for the front of the bag. So we made our little pocket, we did little tabs, all that sort of stuff to get ready to finish the bag here in week 3. So if you haven't seen the rest of that, you can always go back and look at week 1 and week 2 if you need. So now let's get started to finish up our bag. The first thing I want to do is remember again in week 1 when we did all of our cutting. With that, we did cut out our lining pieces. So these are our lining pieces. And then we also cut out our interfacing. So this is our nice iron-on interfacing. And what you're going to do is you're just going to take this again, following the instructions that you have for your particular interfacing. And you're just going to go ahead and iron these together and make sure that everything is nice and flat. This interfacing gives some body to the inside of the bag, so it really is nice to make sure you have a good interfacing to work with. And then the other thing you want to do is you had 2 little bitty squares. So you see you've got 2 little squares here. You're going to place these, go to your instructions because that's going to tell you exactly where you should place these 2 little pieces. But we're going to place those pieces in again. This is going to help give stability when we're using the magnetic connector. So that's why we have that. We need a little bit more support for that magnet, okay? So go ahead and get all of that ironed. And then once you have those put together, then we're going to come back and we're going to go ahead and use that same, this is the same thing we did, except what we did is we made a couple marks. Can you see how for the front and for the back, there are a couple marks? That's where that magnet is going to go. And the other thing that's important that you do at this point is where those lines are. It's kind of hard to see, but we cut that. We just made a little slice. That's why we needed, there we go. You can see how there's a nice little slice there. So you can see that that's where the magnet is going to be placed. So you want to do that before you actually do anything else. So now let's put this together, right sides together. So we've got the right side of our lining together and we're going to sew around the edge, right? So again, 1/4 inch seam, sew around the edge. But this time, this is super important. You're going to leave a little opening. So if you see, I've already done this. So we've already done this. We started up here, left a little, actually a pretty good size opening because you've got to get your leather piece. So this piece is going to actually go through this, this little opening too. So you want a pretty good size opening, 1/4 inch seam all the way around. And once you have that done, you're really close to getting your bag almost finished. So this is really, we've got our two pieces of the bag. We've got the outside and we've got the inside. So now we're ready to put our bag together. When you're putting the bag together, what you want to think about is you're going to use your lining here. So we've got our lining and this is your outside. You want right sides together. So you're going to kind of stuff, and it really is almost like a stuff sack. You're going to put the outside of your bag to the inside of, and if you can see that, see how that's all together there. Got the outside of the bag to the inside of that lining, but the important thing is it's right sides together. So it's right sides together. And what we're going to do next is we're going to actually sew, and we're going to sew around this whole outside edge with about a 3/8 inch seam. When we do this, we might have to ease a little bit in, so that's okay. So we're going to ease that in as need be, so that'll stretch. And again, about a 1/4, I said 1/4 inch, about a 3/8 inch seam, so a little bit bigger seam for this. You want to make sure that your edges. When I say edges, I mean the side seams too. You want to make sure that that's aligned and line that up as well. So we're going to align these on both sides, and then we're ready to go ahead and start sewing. When we take this over to our machine, depending upon how big you're making this. Now, I didn't mention this on week 1 when we were cutting, but within the My Sewnet crafting software, so that's what I was using. Within that software, you can actually take all of these pieces and say, I want to make it 150%. So basically a little bit bigger for a larger bag. You can do that. So that's really easy. So again, depending upon the size of your bag will depend on if you can get this around a free arm. So this bag is a little bitty bag, so I'm not going to be able to get that around the free arm. That's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to place this underneath the presser foot. So right under here, and you know what? I forgot to say something. I want to make sure I say this because this is really important. This inside, this is that back little tab, right? That was on the back of our bag. So this is our little ring there. Make sure that that is down in the bag. When I did my first one of these, I almost had this up and I'm like, whoops, I got to make sure you get that down in the bag. So it's going to hold in there where it should be versus flipping over the top. So again, really important that you have those pieces down in there. All right. So now we're going to bring this over to our machine. And what I'm going to do is and this is going to be almost impossible for you guys to see on camera, but what I am going to do is I'm going to have my top and my bottom and just put that presser foot down and make sure that I've got that seam allowance. And I'm just going to start sewing with a straight stitch. I'm just going to be really careful. And you can see I'm going to just even bring this over here. So here we go. One of the beautiful things I have to say about our Husqvarna Viking machine is when we're going over all these thicknesses, I just love the way that I don't have to worry about anything as far as thicknesses go. If you are using a machine that, first of all, make sure you have a sharp needle. Okay, so make sure you have a sharp needle, but also make sure you take your time when you're going over seams. That's going to be important so you aren't going to have any problems with needles or breakage or anything like that. So just take your time, go around that edge. And remember, I said you might have to do a little easing. So if you don't know what easing is, it's just a little stretching to make sure everything aligns. I'm just going to see how I keep moving this around just a little at a time. And I just keep moving and keep moving. And all of those thicknesses as we're going. And it isn't very far, it's just a little, got to just make sure you're only getting the pieces and parts that you want. And once you're done with that, you can see I've got this little seam, right, all the way along here. So I went all the way around with that seam right on that top part. This is where I feel like it's almost magic when we do this because we had this opening. Remember, we had this opening. We're going to turn everything inside out through that opening. So that's why I said you want to make sure you leave kind of a nice size opening because we've got all this faux leather pulling through. And then when we get to the top, like I said, this is where I feel like it's almost magic. Check that out. So we've got all of there's our front, there's the lining, Make sure this gets the right spot here. Okay, so now whenever I play around with this, I talk about this, it's like a little hot dog, right? We've just pulled that inside out. But now what we're going to do, which makes this really cool, is we push. So I'm going to push the lining into the top. And if when you're doing your cutting, what you're going to notice is the lining is a little bit longer. The lining's a little bit longer than your outside piece. So because of that, check that out. That's what makes, I'm going to show you, isn't that cool? That's what makes this nice top portion that gives it a really nice accent, right? So that's really kind of cool. And remember, I mentioned about those tabs. So those tabs are in the right spot. So we got that right there. So we've got that good to go. And now we do want to, at this point, you do want to do a little top stitch around here. You don't want to put don't finish that opening yet. We want to wait for a minute, but I do want you to go ahead and top stitch that piece. And this is where you just kind of, you're going to feel where you need to go with this. So I just kind of push that down and feel where I need to be. And then this time with the top stitching, they actually call it stitch in the ditch. We're going to stitch right between the fabric and the faux leather. So we're going to try and stitch right in that area. And you do have to be a little careful with this because when you do this, you want to make sure that you're not catching whatever's underneath. So that is, again, it's just take your time, right? Everyone take your time. And I'm also using that needle position because that's going to allow me to go ahead and see, okay, where exactly do I need to be? And just take my time and sew just a little bit. And it's just gonna, you're just gonna work your way around. Okay. And work my way around. And this is where I didn't mention it, everyone, but this is where you can put that little tab up. So you can make sure that that tab is gonna be up when you go over this edge. All right, and again, just keep on going. Taking your time, making sure that you're not catching anything underneath. So if you have to stop and just make sure everything is moved, take your time, go for it. I mean, it's just a nice, slow process. You don't have very far to go. It's not a very big area. And again, I'm just keeping going, nice and easy, making sure make sure I'm not catching anything, making sure everything is set. And almost there. So again, no rush at all. And all right. So now I've got that top stitching done. So I've got that everything nice set in place. I will say so this is a do as I say, not as I did in this case. And the reason why I say that is I started at the front and I should not have done that. I should have started at the back because that way where I crossed over my seam, I wouldn't see it as much in case I didn't get quite on that edge, okay? So once I have that done, now If you remember, we had that opening still. Okay, so with the opening, I'm going to pull this back up, find my little opening, and this is where I'm going to use the magnets that we worked with at the very beginning, right? So with those magnets, we had the little area in here where we cut those lines. And so there's my little magnet. I put it through my little line, and now all you're going to do, there is a backing to each of these. So with that backing, you're just going to push that backing right onto, if you can see that, I put that right on there. And then you just go ahead and you bend those out. So you're going to bend those to the outside. And you're going to do that in the front. And the other piece you're going to put in the back. So that's actually this piece. So you're going to put that in the back. And then when you get that all set, this is the beautiful, there you do. You got your little clasp right there. So isn't that great? So that'll help keep things from falling out of your little bag. So that is also a really great, great piece. The last thing we're going to do, everyone, is we're going to make our strap. So let me go ahead and get what I need for the straps, and we'll be right back, and we're going to finish up our bag. All right, here we are, almost done with our little bag. And the last thing we're going to do is we are going to figure out and make the little strap. Now, when we were cutting with Memento, you would have ended up with 3 long pieces like this of your lining fabric. That's going to be our strap fabric as well. And then we had the 3 pieces of the interfacing, the iron-on interfacing. So with those, that's what's going to create our strap. And all we're going to do is we're going to place, the iron-on side on the back of our little strap of fabric here. And we're going to do that for all 3. So super easy. Just go ahead and iron that as you would for whatever or however your interfacing is. And once you have that done, then you're simply going to stitch together all of those short ends. So the 3 smaller pieces of fabric are going to create one long strap. And once you get that done, you're going to go back to your iron, and just like we did for the little tabs, you're going to iron this in half and then bring in the sides. So we're just going to bring in those sides and then fold it together again. So exactly like what we did, again, with the little tabs. Once you have that done, let's go ahead, go back to our sewing machine. And I do have this set. I do have it set for a straight stitch because it'll sew a little bit faster. But if you guys liked that look of that straight stretch stitch, that more, they call it reinforced straight stitch or a straight stretch stitch, it just is more bold. So if you like that look, you can go ahead and use that too. So once we have that done, using my needle position, I'm just going to sew. I hope you guys are realizing, I hope everyone out there is realizing how wonderful it is to be able to switch your needle position. I think a lot of times we know our machines will do that, but at a certain point, we don't use it very often. I use my needle position all the time. You can see how right here I've got more of my presser foot is able to be on the fabric. Otherwise, I'd be like off to an edge, and that is not as nice when you're sewing. So by using and changing the needle position, that makes it really super easy. And easy has been my word for this project because I think it has been just a fast, fun, easy project for us. And just keep on going. I'm not going to finish this out. You guys know how to sew a straight stitch. So all I'm going to do, the reason why I wanted to get a little bit in here is you're going to sew your second row. So you'll sew your second row of stitching. And once you have that done, that's when you're going to use your little swivel hook. You're going to put that fabric, your strap, through the swivel hook like that. And then I like to fold this under just a little bit. You can either use a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch, but I like to finish it off like that. It makes it look a little bit, just a little bit more professional by having that finish like that. So once you have that done, then guess what? You've got your strap, you've got both pieces. All you have to do is hook them on the other rings. And there you go. Wasn't that fun and easy? It was really a great little project. This was, again, the finish of our week 3 with making our little bag. And I'm so glad you guys were able to join me. I really appreciate that. And hopefully you had some fun, learned a couple new techniques. But remember, I said at the beginning, this is a 4-part sew-along. Well, guess what? We have a bonus set of projects for you in week 4. We've got a festive fall set of projects that you're going to have so much fun with. And it's actually working with our Memento cutting machine. So some really great new things, different things, some things that'll just be fun for you to use for the fall for your time. So again, thanks for being here with our sew-along for our little project here with the bag. And make sure to join us with week 4 with our festive fall projects. And we'll see you then.